I've been looking forward to starting this new notebook for such a long time. Welcome to my second bullet journal for 2024. We'll set up some spreads together today that will hopefully help me keep my life on track for the next 6 months. And if you have some journaling to do too, feel free to grab yours out and we can journal together, and maybe you'll even get some ideas. Hi, my name's Erin. Thanks for planning with me. I'm moving into this journal for the second half of the year. This is the Bodhi A5 grid journal from Tifosi. This one actually has 192 pages, which is a bit more than I usually look for in a journal, but I've been getting really into memory keeping in between my monthly bullet journal setups in my journal lately, so hopefully it's something that I will make use of. We're going to skip the awkward first page and go straight to the first full spread, but we will go back to that awkward first page later and use it for something. But for now, we're going to start on the cover spread, and I'm going to use my PHOMEMO MO2 mini printer for all of my headings in this setup. I'm really into this font right now. I found it on Canva. I'm using it for all of my headings throughout this whole setup. It's called Anactoria, and I really like the italicized letters with an upright initial capital for some reason. I don't know why I love that so much, but it looks very fun and old-timey to me. So I'm printing my 2024 Part 2 header with that. I'm also going to do a header for each of the months of the year, although we won't be using this on this spread, but I thought I'll just get organized and do all of my printing in one go. If you aren't familiar with the concept of thermal printers, they are a handy little device. They don't actually need any ink to print, they just use thermal technology on special paper. They can fade over time, but I haven't found it to be a problem for me yet. If you've been following my journal journey this year, you'll know that for the first 6 months of this year, I used paint in every single bullet journal setup. This is going to be the first one in a while that's for myself that I haven't had to do that, and it's really freeing. I'm very excited to be collaging again, so this is going to be a very layery kind of a setup. I'm using this paper that is made to look like it's from a book. I am not someone who can find it within me to tear up a book very easily, so it's great that they make scrapbooking paper that looks like it's from a book. That's very helpful for me. I'm going for kind of an alternate corners collaging thing, so I'm going with the bottom left corner of the left page and the top right corner of the right page, and I'm using a combination of glue tape and a glue pen to make sure that I get this sticking down really well. The color scheme for this setup is going to be kind of blue, green, grey and silver. And I'm starting out by layering some of these pieces of this printed vellum paper over the top of the text paper. I love that you can see what's underneath it. Lots of layering, lots of transparency going on in this setup, which is really fun. This washi tape is from a set called Italian Summer 1983, which is from the washi tape shop. They don't sell it anymore. I'm so sorry. It's beautiful and I use it a lot, and people always get sad when they find out they can't also get it, but I'll see if I can find something similar that I can link you to instead. This washi tape, however, you can still get from the washi tape shop. This one is from the Petals and Parchment set, which was designed by Anna from Journal Away. It's gorgeous. And I am very sadly going to finish it over the course of this setup, so I have run out of this one now, which is really sad. I'm a pretty indecisive collager, so sometimes I will peel up my washi tapes and move things around quite a bit. Because they're a little bit more opaque than the vellum paper, I wanted them to sit on the top because I felt like things showing through the vellum were getting a little bit too hectic. Also, possibly worth mentioning, this glue tape actually shows up a tiny little pale blue dot, and because this is clear paper, you can see the glue tape through it, but I decided that I do not care, partly because the color of the glue dots matched the color of my theme, and also partly because it just wasn't that obvious. It's pretty subtle, so I'm just gonna roll with it. I also have these grey and silver floral stickers that I'm going to use for even more layering. Those ones came in a set where you get a washi, a PET, and a kind of somewhere in between a matte PET sticker with the same design of each one. So there aren't that many variants in the pack, but I'm going to use quite a few of them throughout. As always, I'm going to link to everything that I can link to in the description down below, so if you want to get your hands on anything you see me using in this video, that's something you can do. I've actually used paper with the PHOMEMO mini printer this time that is clear, like PET kind of feeling paper, which is so cool that it can print on that. That's pretty amazing. I feel like that just opens up a world of layering possibilities for the printed elements of this setup as well. So rather than just sticking this straight down on the page like I planned to, I decided I was going to layer this one over some vellum paper as well. And then something else for the opposite corner, because this is taking up some space in the top left corner, I thought I'd pop a little quote down the right. And this one is from John Lubbock. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. The quote is, "Rest is not idleness," which is something that I definitely need to remember sometimes. I can get into a bit of a little workaholic rut, so something I'm trying to remember for the second half of the year is to rest a bit more. I'm really happy with how this color scheme is coming together. I'm really enjoying it, but I felt like some of these elements were a little disjointed and disconnected. Usually when that happens, I just put things in a big border that goes all the way around the whole spread, but I didn't want to do that. I feel like it's a bit too Erin formulaic, you know, it's kind of what I always do. So instead, I grabbed out a silver paint marker. This one is from ArtX. And I'm just adding tiny little dots with the bullet end. This one has a bullet end and a brush end on the pen, which is great. And I'm just using that bullet end to make little dots all around that kind of move from one piece of collage to another and bridge those gaps. I'm also trying to cluster them a little bit closer when they're next to a piece of paper or washi tape or whatever it is, and then spread them out a little bit as they drift away from there. So it sort of looks like maybe stars or snowflakes or something. It is winter here in Australia from the beginning of June, so I guess we'll call it a wintry thing because it is kind of icy, but I'm so happy with this spread. I think this is an excellent heading for a theme, and I'm excited to put it on some other pages now too that are a bit more functional. I'm going to start out with a Dutch door this is going to be my future log that gets me through the next 6 months. Just a place to write down any specifically dated events or reminders or anything like that needs to happen on a specific day of a specific month of the next 6 months. I wanted to take away some of the right page so that I can fit July, August and September on the first spread, flip it over and do October, November and December on the second spread, and not have any kind of awkward extra space left over. So each month will have its own half-page column kind of situation, and we're going to add some decoration at the top and bottom of both of these spreads. I got this gorgeous washi tape in store at Kinokuniya in Sydney when I was there back in November last year. This is actually my first time using it and it is so pretty, but I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be able to find it to link to, so I will do my best. I love a torn edge on washi tapes, especially when I'm going to layer them together, so I tore this one in half, which is much easier to do with a wide washi than it is with a narrow one, fair warning. And I placed that a little higher on the page so that I could come back in with this washi and lay that over the top and get this fun kind of like mountains peeking out from behind effect. The green washi actually has some gold gilding on it, which doesn't entirely go with the theme, but I decided I like it too much to exclude it just based on that. So we're going to just include a little bit of gold for the sake of it, although everything else that's in the setup is more towards the silver gilded kind of lean. Once we've got all the decorations down on this first spread, we're going to flip over the Dutch door half page there and do it all again on the second one. Anytime I cut a Dutch door into my journal, I love using one of these little corner punch tools to round out the corners so it looks like it always was meant to be that way. I also recommend punching those corners after you add washi tapes and stickers and things because then it will round out everything in one go. Remember those month headers I printed earlier? They're going to come in handy now, so I'm just going to cut those down so that they are all separate from each other, and then we can get to work on adding the names and the numbers for each of the months. You can also thermal print the tiny calendars if you'd like so that you have the numbers for each month done and you don't have to write them all out by hand. I have done that in the past, but I've kind of come around to it. I've been bullet journaling for such a long time now that writing out all the numbers for every month doesn't really faze me anymore. I'm adding this little silver bar to each of the calendar spaces. This is where I'm going to put the initial for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so on and so forth. I'm going to pop the name of each month above that, and then right underneath that is where the numbers will go. You might notice here there are some pencil markings on the page. I always go through and plan out where things are going to sit on each spread before I jump in and start filming so that I make less mistakes mostly. But also when it comes to something like these calendars, they can be pretty easy to mess up if you kind of listen to music or an audiobook or a podcast or something while you're setting up. You can kind of just get in the zone. So I recommend if you wanted to do something like this, jump in with a pencil first. And in the column, so I do Monday starting calendars, but if you do Sundays, maybe it's the Sunday column, just put the number for the beginning of each week, and that will kind of keep you on track and keep you writing the right numbers in the right spaces. Trust me, I've made that mistake before and it wasn't fun to fix. I'm also just popping a bit of this clear extra leftover paper on top of a spot that I ripped when I peeled up my washi tape earlier, just so the rip doesn't get any worse. I'm not going to need to do any actual planning in that space, so this is probably a pretty good fix, I think. I was feeling like the space underneath each of the calendars was looking just a little bit too open and bare, so I jumped in with a very pale grey Tombow dual brush pen. This one is the N89, and I used it to draw a line in every second dot grid row, just so that there's a bit of a guideline for space to do the writing of the events and the reminders. I do this a lot, and it's almost always with this pen. It just works so well for this purpose. It fills in the space and gives it a little bit of something more interesting without adding any kind of busyness or visual weight to the spread, and I love that so much. Now let's get rid of the rest of the pencil marks, and this spread is actually done, set up. Let's move on to the next one. Social media is a big part of my job, and as such, I like to have a little place to keep track of my social media accounts and see how they're growing and tracking and moving on up. Hence, this page we're now setting up is a social media tracker. This one is going to have two tables actually. There'll be one on the top that is for my personal social media accounts, and there'll be another table underneath that is for my dance group. I recently took over running social media for my dance group as well, so I wanted to have a little space to keep track of that too. Usually when I do this kind of thing, I set these up where they're kind of in tables that are fully closed in, but this time I thought we'd just skip the top and bottom and left and right of each one of these and leave them open. And I wanted to make it really soft too, so I've used a very, very fine Sakura Pigma Micron, the 003, I think it is. And I made really soft kind of broken lines with it so that things don't look too heavy and solid on the page. I'm teaming those up with my wooden letter stamps and my silver brush pen, and just adding a little heading sideways along the edge there so I know which table is for my dance group, the bottom one, and which table is for my own stuff, which is the top one. Of course, we need headings for all of the functional spreads and pages throughout this setup too, so I'm printing some of those very quickly. Of course, we need the social tracker one first. It needs to go at the top. So the way this page will actually work is that at the end of each month, I'll have a look at my social media stats, like how many followers I have or how many views I'm getting on things, and I will note them down for that month in the appropriate square for that social media. So YouTube and Instagram obviously are the top ones there. We've also got a TikTok account for the dance group, so things to keep track of. I'm going to go ahead and add some decoration. We've got quite a bit of space for it here, which is really nice. We can do some cute little corners and some washi tape along the top and bottom. And because my printer paper is clear, when I add my headings on there as well, I can stick it right over the top of the washi tape and it will still be nice and visible, but kind of play into this fun layering idea that we have going on here. Look how cute. I love it so much. Let's move on to the goal page. Wow, like magic, it's already set up. That's amazing. This one is really just some decoration around the right side, kind of outside edge as a border. Sometimes I like to divide my goal page into different categories and sometimes I don't. And this is one of those cases where I'm not going to do that, but I am going to offset every second line with my lovely grey marker to fill in the page a little bit more. Wow, how easy was that? My next spread here is for a content planner, and this is actually going to be the same spread twice again, so we're going to have 2 months to a page for this one. So July and August on the left page, September, October on the right page, and then we're going to fit November, December on the next one, and then also January and February, so I can do some planning moving into next year before I have to set up another journal again. Sometimes I just find that really helpful. Obviously, I make YouTube videos here and I post stuff to Instagram as well, so it helps me to have a space that I can plan out my content pretty far in advance. Sometimes that's something that I need to do. But this isn't only a useful setup for content planning. If you're also content planning, then maybe you'll want to try it, but I feel like this could work really well if you are studying and you need a place to track your assignment due dates or something like that, exams. It could work really well as a very comprehensive bills tracker for whenever you have payments due. It could be a really good way to keep track of birthdays throughout the year that you can refer back to at the beginning of a month and be like, right, whose birthday do I need to look out for this month? Truly, anything you do that has dates involved that are important, this would be a pretty cool way to keep track of them. So not just for content planning, for many other things too. I'm introducing a silver washi tape here on this spread that I haven't used yet elsewhere in the setup. I felt like I needed to bring in something else because I knew I was going to run out of the petals and parchment tape at some point during this setup, and I didn't want to run out of it really early on, but there is obviously some silver going on elsewhere, so I feel like this one is a pretty good trade-off, and it layers pretty well under things. It is kind of like a vinyl tape though, so if there are any lumps and bumps under it, they will show through, and it's shiny, so you're gonna see them. Mostly when I'm using this spread, I'm using it to plan out my YouTube videos in advance, and at the moment I'm posting twice a week. You may have noticed that. So on Tuesdays and on Fridays my time. There are some videos that are recurring that I can kind of fill in here and have them noted down in advance, like my reading journal setup videos, my plan with me videos, my mystery journal plan with me videos, and seeing them all laid out like that corresponding to the week that they will go live, on this calendar kind of system helps me to see when I need to generate ideas for content for the other dates. If I have stationery haul videos or anything like that, I know where I can slot those in. I might actually end up dividing the space with the grey lines into 2 columns so that I can have like a Tuesday column and a Friday column for videos, but I may also not do that, so we'll have to see. All she needs now is a header at the top of the spread. I'm going to put it right in the middle this time, even though that kind of makes it awkwardly disappear into the binding a little bit. And then we're going to turn the page and we're actually going to do all of this again, but for the following 4 months. Content planner is all set for the next 8 months, actually. I'm trying to make sure that there's green and blue represented somewhat equally, so I've added some green to these spreads as well in the form of a marker. And we're going to move on to the next one. This is my monthly reset checklist, and this is something that I've been finding really useful. I haven't always used it necessarily in the first 6 months, but when I do, I feel really good. So we're going to bring it with us into the second half of 2024. And when I say us, I mean I'm going to bring it with me into the second half of 2024. I'm not Gollum. This one is another table, and this time I'm going to have the sort of wider column over there on the left is going to be a task that I want to do every single month, maybe at the beginning or maybe at the end. And each one of those smaller boxes after that is a checkbox for each individual month. So I can see, for instance, here I'm writing down the ones I want to do. Did I clean out my fridge in July? Then I can tick it off. Did I clean out my car in August? Then I can tick that off, and so on and so forth. Now we just add decoration. I've transferred the chores over that I want to do every month from my previous journal, and I've left the bottom one empty just in case I think of anything else that I want to add or expand. I can have some space to do that here without kind of having to set up a whole new page. I always really like to bake in some flexibility into my setups. I also did something similar back on the social tracker page where I left another one blank there for my ESA, which is Erin Smith Art, which is me here on Instagram and that kind of thing, so that if I start a new social media account, like how Threads just kind of came out of nowhere last year, then I have the ability to keep track of that. And I am on Threads, but I'm not tracking that one because I don't really care. We're just going to finish up making this one pretty. I'm using some more of the vellum paper, I'm using some more of the washi tape, I'm using some more of the stickers, because that's how you make a theme look consistent and cohesive, is by using the same stuff over and over again, so your eye goes, ah yes, repetition, this is a good thing. I have a video about how to make your bullet journal look prettier, so if that's something you're interested in, I'll pop a little link to that in the top right corner or down in the description. Now, I know we already set up a future log for the second half of this year. I'm setting up another future log, but this one's kind of a condensed, smaller version that's for the first half, well, the first 3/4 of next year, because sometimes it helps me to have a place to put really far in the distance dates and events as well. But I know I don't need a lot of space for this, so I'm just keeping it to one page, and I'm just leaving a little column to the right of each of the months here, so I've got somewhere to add a little shorthand note on a specific date and know that I need to remember it and not book anything else on that date, probably, because they're usually pretty big events when you find out about them this far in advance. The temptation to add some decoration down the right side of this page was so strong, but I do actually need that for planning, so I didn't want to fill it in. I'm just adding a tiny little bit of washi tape at the top and bottom. This one's the metallic shiny one. And of course, we're going to add all of the month titles here and a 2025 title at the very top too. I wanted to make sure we had something else on this page as well though, so it's not just some silver and some text and some green lines. So I'm going to jump in, even though I don't have a great deal of space to play with, I'm going to use one of my floral stickers and show you one of my favorite little hacks for when you don't have a lot of space to play with but you still want to use a slightly larger sticker. Cut it in half and then place it right at the top of the page, kind of moving in two directions. It's going to look like you used two separate stickers and they're going to make this lovely kind of arch in the middle that you can use to put your heading down, and that just looks so pretty if you ask me. We're actually almost done with the functional spreads. We've only got one left to do, and then a little tool that is absolutely necessary, but this one for me is also a necessary spread. This one is for swatches of all of my pens. Do I need to do this in every single notebook I get? Probably not, but because I'm coming from one with off-white watercolor paper, I do feel like I need to swatch all of my pens and maybe even my watercolors just to see how they look on this paper, because it's not what I'm used to anymore. I know I'm going to make this one quite busy and full, so I'm leaving myself lots of space for swatching and just adding a little strip of washi just along the outside edges of both pages. So I've got heaps of room for swatching, but it still looks like part of the theme. If you've been watching me for a while and you're thinking, Erin, where the heck is your cash flow tracker? You'd be right for noticing it's missing, but I've actually moved it into its own journal recently, this little traveler's notebook from Archer and Olive. I'm not obsessed with the embossing on the front of this one, so I need to get a sticker to cover that up, but never fear, I do still have my cash flow tracker, it's just not in this journal anymore. We've got one more thing left to do here. I'm actually taking the paper that I cut off the Dutch door of that very first calendar spread, and I'm going to use it to make a little grid spacing ruler. This is my absolute favorite way to work out page divisions really quickly. I got this idea from Tracy Tyler Revell. She is the genius behind this gorgeous, wonderful idea that I am obsessed with. I tried having this as a tip-in last year and I did not like it one bit. I much prefer being able to move it around on the page as I need. The idea of this little ruler is that you can very quickly find things like how to divide your page into thirds horizontally or vertically, how to quickly find the middle without having to count all of the dots every single time, because my god, that gets frustrating pretty quickly. Instead, you just work out those page divisions once and put them on this little handy dandy ruler, and then every time you want to set something up, you can just pull this out of a little pocket at the front of the journal that we're going to make in a moment, or you can keep it in the pouch that sits at the back of your journal if you have one of those, or like the original that Tracy did, you can just use it as a bookmark that marks where you're up to in your journal, which is also genius. And then just refer to it anytime you need to divide a page, and you don't really have to count things out ever again. I love that. Any chance I can take to avoid doing maths, I will absolutely take it. Fair warning, these might be different for different journals. My last journal had a different number of dots on the page, so it might be different to this one. In fact, it is different to this one. Your journal might be different again, so I recommend you make one of these for yourself rather than maybe exactly copying mine. It may not be correct for your journal. So just to show you how I'd use this, say I want to find the center of the page really quickly, I can see that horizontally the halfway point is between 13 and 14 there, so I can mark that in the horizontal, and then vertically I can do that again here. It's at the 19 and 20, so I can very quickly find the halfway point of the page and work from there, and I love it. I use it all the time. I thought it could be prettier though, so I've put all of my measurements on one side of it, and I'm going to add just some pretty washi tape to the other side, make it work with the theme, and maybe also reinforce it a little bit so that it really holds up well throughout the 6 months that I plan to use this journal, potentially longer if those 196 pages prove to be more than I need for the rest of the year. And I think having this washi on the back of it will just make it more recognizable on my desk too, to help me find it when it's getting lost amongst my stationery mess, which is something that I find myself living in quite a bit. Since this is as tall as my journal page, I'm going to fold it in half so it'll fit nicely into a little pocket. I'm totally okay with that. It also helps me really quickly find the center. I'm going to give it a little punch on each corner just to make sure that things are nice and clean. And then we're going to flip back to that awkward page right at the beginning, and I'm going to make my little pouch on this one so that my little grid spacing ruler has a home that it can live in, and I should hopefully always know where to find it and maybe potentially always put it back after I've used it too, although that doesn't necessarily always happen. I'm using another sheet of my printed, looks like it came from a book paper here. I'm just folding under 3 of the sides and then cutting them diagonally so that I can fold this down into a little kind of pouch envelope thing. I'm going to add my glue onto those little flaps, and then that's what's going to attach this onto the page. Do we need to decorate the pouch with extra layers? Look, no, we probably don't, but we're going to anyway. I'm not going to add any kind of heading onto this one because that just feels a little bit strange. I know what it is. You know what it is because you've watched the video, so we're just going to add a little bit of pretty here, and then we're going to call it a day. The next spread, the cover spread, does the introducing of the theme for us, so we don't need this page to do that, but I did want it to look a bit cute. And with that, I'm all set up for my second bullet journal of 2024. Thank you so much for planning with me. Let's have a little flip through and look at everything. If you've enjoyed planning with me, don't forget to hit subscribe so that we can do this again in the future. I also have stacks of these new journal setup videos from previous years on my YouTube channel as well. So if you'd like to get some more inspiration, if you're looking for some more ideas, or if this theme's just not quite your vibe, then there is plenty more for you to check out. I am also giving away a journal that is fully set up for the second half of this year too. Not the one that I'm showing you here, it's a different one, and that one has its own video too that you can enter the giveaway from, so I'll make sure that's linked in the description for you too. That giveaway closes on the 31st of May though, so you gotta hustle. I'll be back on Friday with my reading journal set up for June, as well as everything that I read in May, so stick around for that. I've loved spending this time with you, and I hope you got some ideas for your own journal too. If you recreate anything from this one, make sure that you let me know so that I can enjoy your work. If you'd like to keep watching, I'll pop a link on the screen to that other new journal setup, the one that I am giving away, in case you want to enter that giveaway, and underneath that is a link to another video that YouTube thinks you'll enjoy.